When Puss sings about being everyone's favourite fearless hero, when he lauds his stature as the legend who laughs in the face of death, it got me thinking, who was my favourite fearless hero? But as I started to list out all of these greats, like Iron Man, Spider-Man, Wolverine or even Shrek, I realised that the legend of a fearless hero is just that, a legend. Because all of these heroes feel fear. Whether it's Thor and the fear of his family being torn apart, Wolverine and drowning, Shrek and Prince Charming getting it on with Fiona. Even the very definition of a hero is someone who, in the face of danger, combats adversity through feats of ingenuity, courage or strength. A person admired for their courage, outstanding achievement or noble qualities. How can a fearless hero triumph through feats of courage when by their very own nature they cannot feel fear? And then I realised that there is one so-called hero that has more in common with Puss than I ever could have imagined. Another hero who, like Puss, believes that fear is what makes us weak, and so spent their life trying to transcend fear. The most unlikely duo in the cinematic universe, Bruce Wayne and Puss in Boots. You can ask the question of both films, from the Nolan Trilogy to The Last Wish. If fearlessness is what makes both heroes so formidable, why force them to feel fear again? Why did Christopher Nolan and Joel Crawford feel the need to strip the symbol of Batman from Bruce and the legacy of 9 lives from Puss? Why watch both heroes spend their lives creating a symbol that allowed them to transcend fear, only to strip them away again and force the once fearless heroes to feel fear again? The answer lies in just how incredibly intertwined both heroes' journeys are. Because when you really start to break both characters down, you begin to realise just how similar they truly are. And it starts from their fundamental belief of what makes a hero. As both Puss and Batman spend their lives trying to transcend one of the most basic fundamental human drives, fear, because they believe this is what makes them weak. We see this in Bruce, who believes that it's his fear that killed his parents, confiding in Alfred that their deaths were his fault, that I made them leave the theatre if I hadn't gotten scared. This is why Bruce was so hell-bent on overcoming fear. His fear killed his parents. And if, like his father said, all creatures feel fear, especially the scary ones, Bruce wanted to conquer his own fears and use them against his opponents. So he spent his life trying to transcend them and become something more than just a man.
As a man, from flesh and blood, I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible, I can be everlasting.
That's why Bruce adopted the symbol of the bat, because as Bruce put it, bats frighten me, and it's time my enemies shared my dread. He wanted to use the power of his own fear against others. If Bruce could completely overcome his fears within, they'd have nowhere to go except without, toward his enemies. And in becoming an incorruptible, everlasting symbol that could never fade, Bruce transcended a fear of death itself, because if he died as Batman, the symbol he created would live on forever. This is exactly what Alfred fears in The Dark Knight Rises, when he tells Bruce that he's not afraid of him failing if he suits up to fight Bane. He's afraid that Bruce wants to fail, because without Batman, all Bruce is doing is waiting for things to go bad again. Bruce doesn't just want to live as Batman, he wants to die as Batman, because deep down he knows that he can no longer live without it as Bruce Wayne. By the end of Batman Begins, Bruce has filled the void of vulnerability to fear inside with the symbol of Batman. Something even Rachel understands when she tells him that Bruce Wayne is now nothing more than his mask, and Batman his real face. And whenever anyone tries to ground him and remind him who he is, he uses Batman as a shield.
Know your limits, Master Wayne.
Batman has no limits.
With the symbol of Batman, Bruce believes he's transcended fear, perhaps even mortality itself. An incorruptible and indestructible symbol. He believes this is what makes him truly powerful, to live without fear. The same is true for Puss, who spent his life building a legacy as a fearless hero who is never afraid. He used his 9 lives to laugh in the face of death, not because of his sheer bravery as a hero, but because he knows these lives make him untouchable. It's why the chorus to his theme song is "Who is your favourite fearless hero?" He believes that the foundation upon which his entire legacy is built is one of fearlessness. That's what makes him a hero. That's what makes him great. Fearlessness is what gives him true power. Puss's symbol of immortality is his 9 lives, and the legacy of fearlessness that having these lives represents. He is the fabled legend Puss in Boots who laughs in the face of death and is never afraid. This is what makes him truly powerful. For Puss and Bruce, the symbols of fearlessness they spent their lives creating becomes more than just a cape or a mask to wear. They become who they are, something they love more than anything or anyone else. And it's almost uncanny to see just how completely parallel Puss's relationship with Kitty and Bruce's relationship with Rachel actually is. What makes this parallel so remarkable is that both Kitty and Rachel realise that the ones they loved love something else even more, something they can't ever hope to compete with. For Puss, this is shown in his conversation with Kitty when she reveals she didn't show up to the wedding because I could never compete with your one true love, yourself, the legend. I wasn't going to show up for that guy. The same is true for Bruce in his conversation with Rachel at the end of Batman Begins when she knows who he really is, and she tells him that Bruce Wayne is now his mask and Batman his real face. Kitty's speech is an almost complete parallel to Rachel's, because just as Rachel couldn't compete with Bruce's love for Batman, Kitty couldn't compete for Puss and his love for the fearless legend he's become. Both heroes fall so deeply in love with the armour that protects them from the one thing they believe makes them weak, that they push everyone else out of their lives. But if these heroes are so madly in love with the suit and the legend they've created, what do they look like without them? These so-called heroes are only able to be heroes when they have their armour against fear, but without them, with their lives on the line, as fear finds them again, we see their true nature. For Bruce, he has his armour of fearlessness ripped away from him when Bane literally smashes the mask of Batman and breaks Bruce apart from the one thing he believed gave him the strength to be a hero. And as he does so, he leaves Bruce in the depths of hell to watch his city burn. But whilst talking to the medic after failing the climb so many times, Bruce admits for the first time that he does fear dying. He fears dying in a pit whilst Gotham falls. But it's more than just a fear of failing Gotham. He fears death now because he fears dying as Bruce Wayne, without the armour of Batman and the immortality of the symbol it represents. Ever since becoming Batman, he never once feared death because he knew dying as Batman his body would fade, but his legacy would last forever, whereas in dying as Bruce Wayne he has everything to lose. As Bruce Wayne, our once great hero can't even make the same jump that a child did, because as Bruce Wayne he cannot do all the things Batman could. He thinks that being Bruce Wayne makes him weak, that without Batman, as a man, he does have limits. This is the first time in the series Bruce is forcibly torn apart from Batman, and it's no coincidence that in doing so, fear finds him again. The same is true for Puss, who by accounts of his fabled legend has never been touched by a blade, but for the first time in his 9 lives, death does touch him with a blade, and draws blood. This scene symbolises the exact moment Puss realises that the Doctor was right, that death does come for us all. For the first time in Puss's existence, he's faced with the prospect of truly putting his life on the line, and as his infamous song quotes, gamble with his life. And what does he do? He cowers from death by crawling through a toilet, trouncing through piss and shit in order to escape. The once fearless hero is reduced to crawling through a sewer pipe because of fear. For the first time in his life, Puss feels the fear of death, and instead of facing it, he runs. And then throughout the film we see that without his lives to negate the fear of death, Puss thinks he's nothing, as Preto tells him it's okay to be afraid, and he replies that no, not for Puss in Boots. I'm supposed to be a fearless hero, a legend, but without lives to spare I am nothing. I need that wish to get my lives back. Puss believes that heroes cannot feel fear, and because he is now afraid, and for the first time in his existence feels fear, he is no longer a hero, that my story is over. He even goes as far as to hold a burial service for his outfit, crying as he sings, "Who was your favourite fearless hero?" But what he fails to realise is that in finally being faced with fear, he now has the opportunity to be a true hero, to muster the courage to face death, to risk his life and still prevail. For most of his life, Puss believed that his 9 lives were what made him so great. But what he doesn't realise is that if he had this inherent value for life all along, he might never have needed 9 lives in the first place. Each frivolous end that death despises might have been saved by that instinctual, life-preserving flood of fear we all feel in the face of danger. The exact instinct Puss lacked all his lives, except one. But both Puss and Bruce completely fail to realise not only the strength fear gives us in being able to fight harder than possible, but more importantly, the opportunity they now have to be true heroes. Both so-called heroes now have everything to lose. There's no symbol left to hide behind. They simply need the courage to fight not as Batman and Puss in Boots, but as Bruce Wayne and Pickles. It's not courageous for Bruce to hide behind a symbol in the hopes that one day he can sacrifice his body to live forever in Batman's legacy. It's not courageous to hide behind multiple lives and build a legacy as a fearless hero when you have nothing left to lose. By the very definition, what makes a hero truly a hero is courage. Having the courage to risk everything for what you believe in, to do what's right. All their lives, Puss and Batman may have done incredible things, saved countless lives, but they did so under the guise of the symbols they built to make themselves incorruptible and indestructible. There is no great courage in immortality, no great bravery in fighting with nothing left to lose. Just look at who they are without their symbols. For Bruce, at the beginning of The Dark Knight Rises, he shuts himself away in his mansion, isolating himself from the world. Unable to wield the symbol of Batman, Bruce is unable to live. As Alfred points out, he's merely waiting for things to go bad again. The same is true for Puss, who's literally held out in front of his wanted poster, and yet completely unrecognisable. With Goldilocks saying, "Is that a joke? You think this scruffy, geriatric bag of bones looks like a legend?" this is definitely not him. But as bad as both heroes' lives become, without their armour of Batman and a legacy of extra life to rely on, neither look beyond them, with Bruce desperate to strap his wounds up and don the suit again to fight Bane, and Puss going from believing his story is over to believing that wish could get me my lives back, and my life back. Puss and Bruce are the perfect vessels to portray the importance of fear in being a hero, because as fearless heroes they've both built two of the most formidable legacies anyone could ever dream of. But in the end, even that wasn't enough to save them. Only the power of fear could do that. And for Bruce, he's forced to feel fear again when he realises that, without Batman, he's no stronger than a child. And after failing so many times to make the climb, the medic tells him exactly why he falls. You do not fear death. You think this makes you strong, but it makes you weak. How can you move faster than possible, fight longer than possible, without the most powerful impulse of the spirit, the fear of death? And as Bruce asks how he can possibly make the climb again, the medic replies, as the child did, without the rope, then fear will find you again. As a child he cowered from fear, allowing it to manipulate and control him. Then for years he learned to conquer fear and channel it without. But as Bruce makes the climb without the rope, for the first time in his life he now accepts fear within himself. And as he learns the meaning of the chant Rise, he escapes from the pit of hell on Earth, reborn as a new man, a new hero. Bruce no longer needs Batman to negate his fear of death, because he understands that fear itself is what makes us strong. For years, Bruce believed that Batman had no limits, that there was nothing he could not do wearing the mask of Batman, and therefore he had nothing to lose. But as he embraced his fear of death once more, Bruce knew that he and the symbol of Batman were no longer the same. He had something to lose, his life, and so was able to fight harder than ever before to save Gotham. Though Bruce wields the symbol of the Batman one final time to save Gotham, he chooses to make the greatest sacrifice of all in letting go, as Batman is killed in the explosion. His decision to kill Batman was possibly the bravest decision he ever could have made, because in doing so, he's forced to live without the protection of this symbol of fearlessness for the first time. But he does so willingly, because he now understands that it's fear that makes us strong. For Puss, his entire journey in pursuit of the Wishing Star is really a journey within to overcome fear. Unlike Bruce, who was almost destroyed by his fears and so journeyed to Tibet in an attempt to, as Falcone put it, no longer fear what he couldn't understand, Puss always had his 9 lives to protect him. Where Bruce spent his life creating a symbol that could save him from fear, Puss had never truly felt a fear of death in the first place, and so on his journey to getting the wish, he is convinced that only 9 lives can give him his life back, until his experiences begin to make him realise just how much he values the 1 life he has left. With the help of the goodest boy of all, he learns to take his time and appreciate the world around him, that in his desperate attempt to steal the wish, he doesn't realise how much he does have to appreciate. Then there's the glaring metaphor that only in literally being chased by death is Puss able to become the very best version of himself. Something he begins to realise in his penultimate meeting with Death, when Death tells him that, "I was there to witness all of them, each frivolous end, but you didn't even notice me because Puss in Boots laughs in the face of death, right? But you're not laughing now. I find the very idea of 9 lives absurd, and you didn't value any of them." Here Death touches on why a fear of death makes us so strong. Because although Puss lived his 8 lives steeped in grand adventure and peril, he never truly valued any of them, because at no point did he have anything to lose. Perhaps Puss never would have died as many times as he did if he'd just acknowledged death's presence. Had he have harnessed the fear of death, he would have valued everything he had in those moments, because he would have known that they couldn't last forever. He could have fought that little bit harder, focused that little bit extra, and ultimately he could have lived all of those experiences in the 1 life he has now. And as Puss comes to realise the true value of the only life he has left, as he begins to understand how much more everything means in its finite state, he finally has his hands on the wish, the one and only thing that could give him his lives back. But as Death returns, he lays out the hero's conundrum bare, when he asks Puss, "You going to take the coward's way out, or are you going to fight?" But Puss no longer wants to run away to more lives, because he now understands that this is the coward's way out. That a hero isn't someone who is fearless in the face of death, but rather someone who fears everything they have to lose, but still has the courage to act. That every adventure he's ever had, and every triumph he's ever savoured is built on superficial grounds, because all of his life, in wanting to live as a fearless hero, he has never once lived as a true hero. For the first time in his life, he has the opportunity to become more than just a legend, a myth of the fearless hero. He has the opportunity to become a true hero, and in doing so he makes the most heroic decision of all, by sacrificing the immortality of his 9 lives to fight for the 1 life he has left. And it's only in having that inherent fear of death, and cherishing the true value of the one and only life he does have left, by channeling the reality of everything he now has to lose, that he's able to fight longer than possible, move faster than possible, and defeat death in the final showdown. The only difference between this fight and his fight in the tavern is that on his journey in search of the wishing star, Puss conquered his fear of death within and learned not only the necessity of death in life, but also how to channel this inherent fear of death into becoming the very best he could be. Though Death returned in search of an arrogant little legend who thought he was immortal, he found something else entirely. Now Puss tells Death he knows he can never defeat him, but it's because of this very reason that he'll never stop fighting for the one life he does have left. Both heroes sacrificed their own forms of immortality to do what a true hero does, stare into the face of death, their life on the line, and muster the courage to act regardless. That's literally the definition of a hero, someone who's faced with a perilous task, who knows they're risking their very lives, and yet still manages to muster the courage to do what no one else could do and fight. One of the many great things both characters do is show us that a hero can be anyone. They don't have to become fearless superheroes or have 9 lives. They feel fear just like the rest of us. They simply need the courage to do what few men can. Arguably the bravest decision both Puss and Bruce ever made was letting go of the greatest weapons they had against fear. For Bruce, the symbol of Batman allowed him to transcend fear and use it against his enemies, knowing that if he died, the symbol of Batman would live on forever. But he realises that the symbol of Batman and Bruce Wayne had to be separated, that the idea of a symbol and its immortality is just that, an idea. Bruce understands that whilst the idea of Batman can live on forever, he cannot. He accepts his mortality, his naked identity, and the risk this places on the ones he loves, because fear is what makes us great. Even though being Bruce Wayne led to his parents' deaths, all those years ago, he understands now that this fear associated with death, the inevitability of our own deaths and the lives of the ones we love around us, is what makes us so strong. For Bruce, to kill Batman but still live on as Bruce Wayne, that is one of the bravest things he could ever have done, because in doing so, he leaves himself vulnerable to the one thing he believed made him weakest of all, fear. And for Puss, his 9 lives protected him from ever having to fear death. So in sacrificing his lives, he once again made a decision few men could. He plunged himself into a lifetime of inherent fear of death, because he knew that fear is what makes us great. That it's only in having one life to fight for that we fight hardest of all. It's no coincidence that both Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and the Batman Trilogy takes 2 of our greatest ever heroes and teaches them that fear is what makes us strong. Because when Bruce's father said that all creatures feel fear, he was right. All heroes feel fear, especially the greatest ones.